Let's consider another example of a method, right? So far we have been using methods that have no return value, right? That's what this void stands for right here. It means that this method here will return nothing, okay? But now we want to talk about methods with return values. Return values. So I'm going to go ahead and put here a int of the a return value of an int. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this method that's going to take in a base and an exponent, right? A base and an exponent, and it's going to calculate the power of the base to the exponent. Okay, so how do I do this? Well, it starts in main. I take in my base and exponent using scanner, and then I'm going to call power. And power, I'm going to give it the base, and I'm going to give it the exponent that I took in from the user, like so. On line 12, it's going to jump down to line 16, and I have two arguments here, right? So I need two parameters here to save those values. So int b and int e. Okay, this is going to hold my base. This is going to hold my exponent that I got from line 12. All right, so we're over here on line 17, and now how do I calculate the power of the base to the exponent? Well, it goes like this. We're going to say for int I is equal to 0, I is less than e, I plus plus. And then I'm going to say base is equal to base. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me think about this for a second. We could say int pow is equal to 1, and then I'm going to say pow is equal to pow times base. Okay, so let's assume our base is 2 and our exponent is equal to 3, right? Well, 2 to the power of 3 is 2 times 2 times 2, so that's 8, right? And that's exactly what this does, because it executes 3 times. All right, so the first time is going to be 1 times 2, so it's going to be 1 times 2, that's going to equal to 2. Then the second iteration of this for loop is going to be 2 times 2, so it's going to be 2 times 2 is equal to 4, right? Then the third iteration is going to be 4 times 2, right? So it's going to be 4 times 2, which is equal to 8. This for loop is going to stop, and at the end of this for loop, our pow variable is going to store the number 8. Okay, so this is a way that you can calculate power using for loops and variables and code, right? So what am I going to do now? Am I just going to go ahead and print out system.out.println and print out pow? Right? No, right? Because this method definition has a return value, right? It's returning an integer. So what I can do here, or what I have to do on line 23, is return pow, return my answer. Right? Now, what does return do? It takes this number 8 and it returns it back to where the method was called. Right, here's the method definition, here's the method called. So it returns the 8 back to line 12. Not only that, but it replaces the method call with the return value 8. Replaces the method call, line 12, with the return value. So let's go ahead and go through this program one more time. We run main, we create a scanner, take in the base, the exponent, we call power, giving it the base and exponent. It comes down to line 16, b is equal to 2, e is equal to 3 in our example. It runs the algorithm, calculates power, pow is equal to 8, right? We're down here on line 23, and we're returning 8. Where does it return it to? Back to where this method was called, right here on line 12, and replaces the method call with the return value. So does that. But notice here in main, we're not doing anything with the return value, right? Though we should, right? So we should do a system.out.println, and we could printline power, the return value of power, namely the 8, right? So now it's going to print out that 8 that gets returned from the method definition. So let's go ahead and run this. Ooh, where's base? Base is b. Whoa. And then I'm going to save this. I'm going to run this. And I'm going to put in a 2 for my base, a 3 for my exponent, and it prints out the 8. Right? We could also add commands in here saying enter the base and enter the exponent, right? And here we can make it prettier and say the power of 2 to the 2 to the power of 3 is equal to 8, right? We could do all of that, but I chose not to. And hopefully this helps you to understand that method definitions can also have return values, right? And we specify them right here to the left of the name. And this return value can be different data types. It could be int, it could be char, it could be string, right? It could be double, and it could also be Boolean. Okay, so maybe I can go over one more example before I move on, and let's do a Boolean example. Boolean, and let's go back to the isEven method that we were talking about earlier. So let's go ahead and say int num, and then over here we're going to say num. Let's take this one away, and then let's go ahead and call isEven here. And I'm not going to just, well, maybe I should print it out. So I'll say isEven num. Yikes. Okay. So isEven num. So what is this going to do? It's going to get to line 11. It needs to run this function method call, right? So it comes down here. It's going to do whatever it does. It returns the answer, and it comes back here, and it's going to print line the return value of isEven. Okay. So now let me go ahead and define this. I'm going to say if num mod 2 is equal to 0, then I'm going to return true. Boolean, remember, is true or false. And I'm going to say else, return false. Okay. So now down here, I don't need a return value because I'm returning either true or false. Okay. So let me go ahead and run this, show you how it works. I'm going to type in 2, true. All right. I'm going to run it again. I'm going to type in 3, false. Okay, so it works, right? And it's printing out the return value of isEven. But the cool thing about method definitions that have Boolean return values is that you can use them in if statements. So I could say if isEven returns true, then I'm going to system.out.println the number is even, right? And I could of course do an else, and I could say system.out.println the number is odd. Okay. So when you have a function method definition that whose return value is Boolean, is true or false, you can use it. You can use the method call as a Boolean expression in an if statement. All right. So what is it going to do? I'm going to type in number 2, num's equal to 2. It's going to run isEven. It's going to jump down here, return true. Come back here, replace the method call with true, and it's going to print out the numbers even. Okay, and if it returns false, it's going to print out the numbers odd. Right. So cool little trick. When you have a method whose return value is Boolean, you can use it as a Boolean expression in an if statement or a while loop. So I'm going to do 2, numbers even, and I'm going to go ahead and do that again. I'm going to type in 3, and it's going to say your number is odd.